Making a Mess, Episode 1. Here we go. This is why we're even doing this podcast, right? Many times you guys see us out doing ministry, so you see Pastor Tom on the stage. But PT, a lot of people try to get appointments with you, try to ask me to meet with Pastor Tom. I know you're busy, but now they get to hang out.
Awesome.
We get to hang out. We get to hang out with you.
I'm so excited.
Get to see the behind the scenes. Some people know you're unhinged. Some people don't know you're unhinged. But now everyone gets to find out who you truly are.
I'm a little nervous about that.
I mean, you don't change who you are.
No, but it's off script and on stage is sometimes a little bit different.
Yeah.
So we'll have some fun.
So here we are.
And the greatest thing is it gets to be done with you in the beginning because
Wonderful.
you were a part of In the Beginning.
I took a sip because I'm nervous.
So Soph, I remember that you as a college student being called to ministry, but way before that, you're like an OG. You grew up in the mothership of every nation, Manila, Victory Church, that we all dreamed to be. What was that like?
In Manila?
Yes.
Okay, so Every Nation started, this is cool, in 1994. And I was born in 1994.
Did it start for you?
It started just for me.
Great.
Not in Victory, but that's just how I know how old Every Nation is, or Victory at least. But I pretty much was born there into the church.
Mm-hmm.
My dad got discipled by one of the first few people in Victory. So kind of discipleship was kind of all I knew. I remember growing up and my parents they would have life groups at night. And we just kind of knew, it was called small groups. And we just kind of knew this is small group night. And people would come there. They would lead a small group with their friends who would bring their kids. And all the kids would get shoved into a room. And we'd all get shoved into that room. And no, don't disturb the adults because they're having small group. I saw my parents do.
What did you do in that room while parents were having small groups? Did you learn with God or did you have fun with
No. Well, I remember one of my first memories, I was really little, is we watched Barney.
Okay, great.
That's literally how little I was. We watched Barney. But no, I didn't grow up with God, probably.
Okay.
I grew up with God later on in my life.
And you moved here when?
On my 13th birthday.
Okay.
That was traumatizing.
I know the story.
My parents felt called to move here to kind of help with new Every Nation churches in Orlando. So I moved on my 13th birthday.
And what year was that? Just to tell how old you are.
2007.
Okay. And your name was Sophia Duque then. Now it's Sophia Marrero.
Yes.
4 babies later.
Yes.
In 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive. So through that journey coming from the Philippines to the United States, what was the difference? What was the culture shock? What were the things you saw or experienced that you've never really experienced before?
Just in general?
Just in general.
Number one, I had a very, very thick accent.
Okay.
So you made fun of me for it.
I did not.
You made fun of me.
I do not make fun of anybody. I am full of love and peace.
This might be fast forwarding a few years, but I remember we were this is when our ministry, we were starting Swag. So this is not fresh. I wasn't even fresh at this point. This was a few years of me living here.
Okay.
But there are certain words that I still say funny. So we were in a leaders meeting. And this was actually the same meeting when you told me that I could not lead a life group anymore. But we'll get into that.
Have you forgiven me for all of that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Okay,
I forgive.
Just want to make sure because I will ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But in that meeting, long story short, we were talking about something that we needed, and we needed apron. I don't even know how to say it. Maybe my insecurities coming out. An apron.
Apron. You did good. Yeah. Congratulations.
And I said aprons. Because that's how we say in the Philippines, an apron.
Okay.
And so I said that. And you said, an apron? What is that?
Well,
and I was like, what?
Well, I mean, everybody does know if I kind of make fun of you a little bit, I love you. That's
yeah.
So that was a good
But
thing.
this was new. Our relationship was still forming at this
I liked you. You were, we didn't have a lot, Sophia.
We only had. Told me that I couldn't lead a life group
You deserve
anymore.
that.
So that was
you 100%.
I will never forget that.
Neither will I. Changed your life for the good.
On top of that, you did not know this, but I ran home to my house because I didn't have a ride home because my brother and I shared a car in college. So when you told me to leave that meeting and said, you're not leading a life group anymore, and then you handed my life group to someone else, we left that
And
meeting.
why don't you share why
Okay.
you weren't, because,
Let's just get into it. 'Cause
okay,
we're
why don't you
making a
share
mess.
why you were told that? Because I didn't just come and say, Sophia, you're not leading a life group. I mean, let's
Sure.
really quick stop. We were desperate as a ministry. We had nobody, right? I just left my career, went into full-time ministry. There were no other missionaries. There were no student leaders. There were very few students when you came on board. And the focus was for me to get out of the way, to create something that could be duplicated and carried from generation to generation. So when I went to the Philippines, where you grew up, I saw that. And I said, okay, what do we need to do? Create something that can be duplicated.
Yes.
So ever since you walked into the ministry and were a part of the ministry as a student, not as a, missionary, which we'll get to later, but there was
that gets even messier.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. That's where you can say how much you love me for how nice I was to you. But when we got there, there was one thing. We're going to see every student saved. That was always the vision and the mission. And we're going to do the one-to-one and lead life groups in a way where life groups can be what? Duplicated. So I empowered you very quickly with faith that you would carry the Filipino tradition of Victory Church here in America. And what did you say in that meeting before I said you are no longer leading a life group?
You empowered a young, know-it-all.
But just what did you say?
Very prideful person that came from the Philippines that was here with a small ministry. So I was leading a life group, and my life group was growing, and you were checking in with everyone, and you said, how are your life groups going? And I knew mine was the biggest, and I said, great. By the way, I don't use your life group notes, and I make my own because it's better.
I don't use your life group notes.
I
make my own because it's better. And then my follow-up was,
then you're not leading a life group
with
anymore.
a smile. I remember I smiled.
I don't remember.
I said, well, thanks, Sophia. You are no longer leading a life group.
Yep.
So when
then you looked at someone else and said, you can have her take over her life group.
Correct.
Yep.
Because we were empowering everybody. We were making messes. We just wanted them to follow a simple protocol. Okay. What did you learn from that?
Not to make my own life group notes.
Okay.
No. I learned later on, like really looking back, that there is a process, and just don't buck that because it actually works. Like no matter how much like I thought that mine was better. And I will still say this, and I'll stand on this, that maybe it did work better at the time because I specifically knew those girls. So it worked maybe for those 6 girls, and maybe they were growing with the Lord, but it was not going to work in longevity because they would not be able to duplicate that with other people.
Well, I think this is a great conversation because, just don't walk home after this.
Don't fire me.
Because is the object of a life group or small group to grow 6 people in the Lord? Is that the whole object? It's not, right? The focus is to allow people to come, build relationally, be equipped with knowing the gospel, knowing their 2-minute miracle, and being able to fellowship together to build community with the goal of multiplying and doing their own life groups, sharing the gospel, and doing the one-to-one.
Exactly.
So I am so happy
I learned
you had fun with your girls, but you could have just done a sleepover.
We did those
every week. Yeah, that's great, right? But then the 1 hour of a life group is always focused on the mission.
You're right.
Right?
Yes.
Can you say that again on what?
You're right.
Okay, great.
Sir.
So when that happened, there was a conversation afterwards. I remember it.
Yeah.
I came up to you and had a conversation, but this kind of was, and not all your fault, my fault too. I was growing and learning and not knowing a lot of what I was doing. I was passionate for the Lord, but I was also an A personality that ran health clubs, and I just expected everyone to get it.
Industry leader. He made sure none of us forgot that he was the industry leader.
Yes. But during that season, there was a lot of those conversations. There were a lot.
Like with me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There was a whole lot.
I wasn't sure if you were saying in general.
There was a whole lot. And to see really where you're at now as a mom, full-time ministry, doing incredible things for the Lord. How did all those moments shape you? Like what, when people look at you, they think you've had your life together forever. When people see you now,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll hear you preach, or they'll see the mom you are, and our staff will see you. There was a lot of messes
Mm-hmm.
that really led to that. And I think that's one of the most important things for this podcast is for people to really understand that we're never the finished product, but what discipleship can really do in someone's life and how we could pull people really from the darkest parts of their life and bring them into just an incredible marriage, an incredible family. And for you, you're a church girl. You grew up in the church, right? What did you feel growing up in the church that I think a lot of church people might feel? I was radically saved, did every drug in the book. When the fire of God hit me, I'm like, why the heck would nobody ever, like, why would you ever walk away from this?
Yeah.
But for someone that saw it their entire life, like, what was it like being a church girl, growing up from a kid, seeing a ministry expand, having parents that are pastors? What did you feel like you had to live up to in that moment?
Yeah, there were certain things definitely like the standard, like I don't know if this is all contributed to being a pastor's daughter or growing in the church, but I definitely felt like I had to be perfect, like I could not fail. And therefore, if I did have any questions about God or doubts or, if at some point, as I believed in Jesus as a young girl, gave my life to God at 5 years old. But then when I got older, went to high school, to college, and was starting to question things, I maybe felt like I couldn't. And I know many people grow up in the church and feel like they can as well, but sometimes I was one of those that felt like I couldn't. I think more than that, like having this standard of perfection, maybe I think familiarity as well. Hearing the gospel my whole life, it kind of became more head knowledge maybe than something that really continuously pierced my heart and actually changed my life. So it was like, oh, I heard that. I know that. I've heard every series. I could probably I've been here since this church started. And Pastor Shaddy, sometimes I felt like, okay, in February, I know it's a relationship series. In November, it's going to be this. It's like, and I kind of would sit there and I don't know necessarily if I could say like, okay, that was my pride, but definitely lack of like, I was not teachable at this point because I've heard it so much that I would sit there and just, okay, kind of, I would hear the scripture literally and be like, I know what he's going to talk about without saying that. But so I think the continuous transformative power of the gospel, not that it was not powerful, it never loses its power. I just didn't let it transform my heart because I wasn't open to it.
Yeah.
And so actually it's funny you say that we have opposite stories, but I used to, when I started serving under your leadership and hear you preach, and then Billy came on staff, and it was kind of like us three for a while. And Billy also didn't grow up in the church. I envied that a little bit of this, like, I remember having devotion times and being like, I want them, when they say they preach the gospel to themselves every morning, it like brings them to tears and they're on their knees. And I'm like, that doesn't really happen to me. And I wanted it at some point so much. And so I don't know, it came with I think the branches of that was when I was really young, like in high school, I wanted to mess up my testimony. I wanted to have a testimony, if you will, but I learned now that you don't have to mess up your story. Like the story is knowing Jesus for a long time and walking in a way that honors him. But yeah, it shaped me in so many ways. Yeah. And I think I had to definitely make my faith my own. And I think that now knowing, like, I guess I went through stuff where like I hit a low point in my life and then the gospel did become real to me. But I think that was God just being like, he, out of his grace and love, wanted to pull me back to him. I don't know if that
I think one of the biggest things too that I always look at is if my kids have to have my story to know Jesus, my story is one of the worst stories.
Yeah.
I should be in prison.
I mean, right? I didn't mean to say, yeah, like that's.
It's okay. Yeah. But I should. I mean, the things that I did in my life and God's faithful hand over me to where I can actually even have my freedom, and just the drugs and all of that, because it was brokenness. It was an absent world in my heart from God. And for me, yes, the gospel, the way it changed my life, I was free from everything. Every chain broke, every bondage, like it was, I'll never look back.
Mm-hmm.
But if my son has to have that story to encounter Christ,
Right.
the greatest story ever is I have an 8th grade son that hasn't said a curse word.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 6th grade daughter that loves Jesus and spends time with him every single night. I have a 5-year-old son that I turn my head sometimes and he's just sitting there praying.
Mm-hmm.
The ultimate story and the greatest testimony is somebody that grew up in a godly home that encountered Christ through a godly family. And many people, my kids are where they're at because of all of you. Jesus isn't just cool to his parents. Jesus is cool to the coolest people
Mm-hmm.
he sees, all the people that came through our student ministry. So, for you, and you had, your parents are incredible, but you had to find Jesus on your own.
Yeah.
God doesn't have grandchildren, right? He only has sons and daughters. And living in a world of feeling like you had to meet a mark isn't probably your parents doing. It's probably the insecurity and the way the enemy tried to get into your heart.
For sure.
But coming into high school and trying to fit into a new environment and trying to be accepted with an accent like apron, but all of that, I think, started coming to a point where now you're in college. And I remember when I met you when you were in college, and it was really me and you forever.
Mm-hmm.
Before Billy even came onto the picture, I remember you as a sophomore in college telling me, Pastor Tom, I'll never go into ministry.
Yep.
I will never. And then I remember you coming to me your senior year and saying, there's just too much stuff. I can't do all of this. And I was like, Sophia, stop serving. Like, college is first right now. Go to college.
I don't know why that felt so freeing. Like you gave me permission to stop serving.
Yeah, but
like,
3 days later, you were back
exactly
serving.
It made no sense. I mean, I'm so busy. Like I can't do school and disciple all these people. And then you'd be like, that's okay. Go focus on school. And I'm like, thank you. And then I don't know why, but then 3 days later I'd be back. But it just felt free.
Serving with everything. And I remember you in absolute tears.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, I'm called to ministry. And you walking into ministry right after you graduated college. And yes, I was industry leader, as you reminded everybody, but you really could have been an industry leader in your profession. I mean, you definitely turned down hundreds of thousands of dollars with your creative gifting and what you do to be a missionary. What was that like? Why did you say yes? What in that moment happened to make you say, this is what I need to do?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely my goal. Going to college was to make a lot of money. And I always saw myself as like the boss. Like I could be CEO of a company and start a business or something. But I think serving we didn't have a college ministry back then. It was just Swagger high school ministry. And seeing lives transformed constantly. That was it. Like, honestly, that was it. It was almost like I always told people, like, this is the part that gets me, but like, I think I always said, like, if I had this when I was in high school, and like, if I knew, like, if I had like an older sister in Christ when I was in high school, I probably wouldn't have made certain decisions. And would have just been so much more joyful than I was. Because then I realized too, like, as I was serving, like, my life is not bad. Like, my testimony is not bad. Like, I was so grateful for my parents, but I thought it was because I lacked the joy in Christ. And so I always said that, like, man, if I had this in high school. So that kind of motivated me to say, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Like, it turned my whole perspective on, like, my future is about me to, like, there's a much bigger picture. There's an eternal, like, vision here.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if I make millions of dollars at this point. I mean, as a college student anyways, I wasn't making a lot of money. I was working at like an ice cream smoothie shop. And so when Pastor Jaddy was like, here, this is the starting salary, I was like, I'll take it, So I took it. But
yeah. And you went into ministry, and for you, while there's some tears, we'll just stay there. For you though, going into ministry is really where you begin to learn the hardest lessons
Hmm.
of your life.
Yeah.
You walked through some really, really challenging times as a full-time campus missionary. What was that like? Everybody looking at you on staff, you're in full-time ministry,
Hmm.
those moments. You can elaborate however much you want. I'm not, that's
Yeah,
not my
no.
job, but
I mean, okay, so the first thing I guess that I would say is like just because you say yes to ministry definitely does not mean you have it figured out, and definitely does not mean like it gets easier from there.
Mm.
Like it only got more challenging on my faith. I realized, man, like now I have to grow even more.
Yeah.
And like it's the real deal now, you know? But I think when I had the opposite mindset when I went into ministry. I was kind of like, I made it almost. I
Yeah.
didn't, not in the beginning, but as I kept doing it,
Mhm.
and honestly, God kept blessing the ministry. It definitely probably where the enemy, was attacking me my whole life, which was where this level of perfection and definitely heightened. Like, okay, now I've been asked to speak at conferences. Now, I am helping lead one of the biggest ministries in our area, and that's such a horrible place to get to. But I didn't realize it at the time, and with that came, I was cruising, like, and I was on autopilot of this is just what Sophia does. I became very self-sufficient, and my devotion time started slipping. Number one, like I was not on my knees praying to God because I felt like I could do it on my own.
Yeah.
I didn't think that at the time, but I really, I wouldn't say that, but that's what it was, looking back in hindsight. And so then I went through that whole season of, I don't know how much I should share, but it was messy. It was really messy. I would say like I hurt a lot of people. I hurt you. I things came out like little things like, oh, because I kept trying to show that I was still perfect when really on the inside I was probably like I was dying on the inside. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Like everything was really being done to elevate myself, and what I shared, why I even went into ministry in the first place, which was to see more girls and more people know Jesus. That almost became not the mission anymore without me realizing it.
Yeah.
So with that came just like lies, truly like covering up things that I was doing. It came with just I don't even know, like it was just not God honoring, I would say. And yeah, you can ask me a question.
I
can answer it.
remember. No, I remember in that moment when there's a lot of little lies. We were aware of the lies, right? And first of all, none of us are perfect.
Mhm.
And I think, unfortunately, so many times, people that aren't in ministry expect everyone to be in ministry to be perfect. And I think it puts unrealized expectations on all of us. And they get hurt and they leave, right?
Mhm.
And it's just, they don't ever look in the mirror at everyone they've hurt, right? It's just, it's unfortunate. That's where they get the church hurt label. But I think with you, there were many conversations that we had through that journey. But I remember sitting across from you and telling you when this all happened, and having you step down from ministry, not out of ministry, but step down from discipling to work on you. And I remember, it was in that moment I looked at you, I said, Sophia, I care about you more
Mhm.
as a mother one day. Oh, I'm not going to let it happen. As a mother one day
Ah.
and as a wife one day than I do care about you as a missionary.
Mhm.
I remember looking at you and saying, I'm not giving up on you. And I believe in you because I love you. And I said, Sophia, you're going to have to make a decision here. You can either stay here and walk through one of the most difficult seasons of your life, being brought to restoration, or you can leave
Mhm.
and go find another job or serve at another church and act like it never happened and never deal with the root of what's going on in your life. And you sat there for 6 months being removed. We got you some counseling, cutting flyers all the time.
Bruh.
Doing,
I went from like going to 8 campuses, right, and doing all the fun things to like you clock in like 9 to 5 in the office. No one else was in there, and all I could do was like design graphics and like cut the flyers.
But you stayed.
Like, yeah.
And
I do remember that conversation. You and Miss Amy came in for one of them, and we were sitting there, and you said, you know, your parents are in the Philippines and you have connections to every church, and like you could go to every church, they wouldn't know, and you could continue being a superstar in ministry, but if you do that, you'll never change. It's basically what you said. And I remember like thinking in that moment, like it wasn't even a question in my head though. I was like, no, I'm staying, because I almost had this quick flashback of like everything that this church has done in my life, or like this is my spiritual family, like at this point. And if there's anything that like is in Filipino culture, is like you don't give up on family. So to me, I was kind of like, if I leave, like what's the point? Like, and that was the first time I think I was pulled out of this, like, it's about you, Sophia, to like, it's not about me again. It's like God brought me back to like where I was. So I instantly was like, no, I'm staying. And then your follow-up thing, it was either you or Miss Amy said, you do know it's going to get harder before it gets easier. And that's when I was like, shoot, what did I just say yes to?
Yeah.
And you said, like, people are going to find out. People are going to talk about you. And it's not going to be easy. You're going to have moments. You're going to start doing different things. And, you know, we have to tell Nick Jones, the director of Every Nation. I was like, oh, my gosh, this is horrible. But.
And every week we met.
Yeah. You even, because I was seeing a mental health counselor. Thank you. You guys pushed me to. And even that, because I was so self-deceived, that I remember there was like an agreement. I don't know if I actually signed it, but where everything I talked about,
you did sign it.
She could tell you or tell someone, and I picked you. So tell someone so that we could just, for lack of better terms, like fact check and make sure. Because I mean, when you go to a mental health counselor, honestly, they only help you as much as you are open and honest. Yeah. Like you could deceive your mental health counselor and get what you need in that moment to make sure you're okay. But I really wanted to put in the work. Like at that point, I really was like, I'm done with this. Like I've hit rock bottom. I remember walking to the church one Sunday, and I walked in and it was Tony Humphreys. He's like the 6-year-old guy at the church. And he was like the greeter at the door. And I walked in feeling completely like unworthy to be here. And I broke down crying, and he came and hugged me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so... And everyone I knew that some of them were like ministry partners at the time in the front lobby of the church, like were staring at me like, what is wrong with her? And at that point, I think I made a decision that Sunday. It was a gradual process of like, I don't care what people think about me, which was so freeing. And finally, God became like my only audience. And I think that's where it went uphill from there, was when it was, God, are you pleased with me at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Like I could do anything. I could say anything as long as it honors you. And if you are pleased with me, I'm fine with that. So.
Yeah, I think that was the most formative time of your life. I think that's where you learned how much God loved you in a relationship way, and how much you love God in a relationship way. I remember meeting with you every week and walking through that, and the moment where it was, you could just tell it was life-changing, transforming. You showed up at my house, you got water baptized. You said, I don't want anyone else knowing, just baptize me. Our whole family was there, baptized you in my pool. And it was a transforming moment, a moment where I think a lot of people would not have stuck through it. A lot of people would have just tried to do something else and cover it up and find a way to blame someone or do something, and they would still struggle with what they were struggling with. But you were truly free. In that moment from there, you get back on staff. Now you're running with the fire of God. You're content in who you are. You are super gifted. We all know that. So the gifting is even reaching another level, because now it's not Sophia's gifting. Now it's the gifting with Sophia and the Lord leading Sophia. And then you meet the man of your dreams.
Woo!
And all of a sudden, the next thing you know is you get married.
You were shocked.
I was shocked. I was shocked. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, you were shocked.
We could have a podcast with your husband one day too, but you know, he's a journey as well to see what God did. But you guys get engaged. It's like, oh my gosh, you're going to get married. I just have hip surgery. So I have to crutch over to the altar to do
And it was COVID.
your wedding, and it was COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah, we remember that.
that was crazy.
That was crazy. That was a crazy season. But then you just started having babies, like honeymoon baby. Once you were able to have
Everyone
another
thinks it's a
baby, another
honeymoon baby.
baby.
It was not a honeymoon baby.
It wasn't.
No,
Oh, I didn't know.
no. It's when we got back, actually.
Okay, great. Well,
The same, but it
I
wasn't.
started the practice on honeymoon, uh, but so baby after baby after baby, and I remember. I think it was it after your first Liam, or was it
We were about to have our second.
okay
Yeah,
when you came to me and you just said,
yeah.
PT, it's time to be a mom. Like
Mhm.
I have to be a stay-at-home mom. I have to exit out of ministry. And there was no, it's a beautiful thing to be a stay-at-home mom. That's an incredible thing if that's what you're called to do. So we blessed you on that. You went
Yeah.
and you did that. And all of a sudden after Max, your second, was born, you started reaching out to me again and saying, hey, can I come to staff meeting? And I'm like, I just missed staff meeting. So I'm like, yeah, come to staff meeting, Soph. And then you come to staff meeting and you're coming to every staff meeting. Then you're serving like
Yeah.
crazy again. Then the next thing you know is you're crying again in my office and you're saying, no, I'm called to be in ministry.
Yeah.
And, right there, just talk about like that moment, how you realized, you always knew this, but I think you realized that ministry is not a job,
Mm-hmm.
that it's a lifestyle, it's a calling. What happened in that moment? What was going through your mind as you're juggling two kids,
Mm.
probably pregnant with your third? If you weren't, you would be soon because
Yeah.
that's just what happened. But what like in that moment, what made you say, this is what I'm called to do?
I don't know if there was like a one defining moment.
Mhm.
I just knew that like every time I was home with them, right? Like I'd be changing a million diapers because they were all on wearing diapers. But like there was just something in my heart that was I would have girls over the house anyways. So I
Yeah.
would have them all over at my house to help me take care of the babies. And then some I remember like the one girl I invited over, she's like, I've never been through the 1-to-1. So I'm literally like holding my babies and taking this girl through the 1-to-1. And then I was like, there was just a desire in me to still go and do it. So then I was like, well, then why am I doing it by myself when I can be on mission with people
Yeah.
that are like on the same mission? So I would come back and serve. And then at some point I'm like, there's a conference coming up. Like I need to be part of this conference. And then I started just doing everything I was doing without getting paid essentially. And, but I think it was more like in my alone times I don't know, like there was just a push. Like, was it the Holy Spirit? Probably. Like, call this girl, do this, and all had to do with ministry.
Yeah.
And regardless of what it looked like, I was willing to do it
Yeah.
again. I didn't know what it was going to look like when I reached out to you. Like I was like, for
Me either.
100%, I know I can't be on campus, right? Like I'm not going to be on campus. I tried doing it before I exited out, literally with Liam strapped on me. It was a great conversation starter, but that wasn't going to last. So I did. There was an act of surrender and like, God, now there's a desire. It's building back up that I want to do this. I know it's not going to look the same. So there was an uncertainty and I'm unsure. I also don't want to be away from my babies. So I was really torn. It wasn't just like, forget the babies, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Like I was torn, but I just, when God's telling you to do something, whether it's a small act of obedience, right? Not a job but like, go do this, go tell someone this. Like, so I knew. And it came to the point, I think, ultimately, when we had that conversation and me crying again, that like, if I don't tell PT this, I am disobeying God.
Mm.
So it was that. Like, I was honestly fearful. I was like, I had conversations with Steven, my husband, like, I feel like I'm disobeying God at this point, and it's scaring me. So then that's when we had that meeting.
Yeah, and I think that, it made sense when you exited out, and then you are hired, right, as, you lead pretty much our entire creative, you lead a lot. You get more done being a mom of 4 than you got done before you had kids. And I think it's really because of when you understood it's a calling. Like, this is what I'm called to do. And God gives the grace when we're called. God expands, he increases. I think we're always going to be stretched. I think if you stop being stretched, you stop growing. And you're an amazing mom. You and Steven have developed an incredible balance. It's not like something's being let go because of what you guys are doing here in our church. But there was something where I think your creativity went to another level.
Yeah.
I think your excellence went, even factoring, think about it. You've always been pregnant for 4 years.
Yeah. 5.
Are you pregnant?
No.
Okay, good. So, but like you've always
No,
been
I'm not.
pregnant. Yeah, for 5 years. And that's just crazy. And all of the things you got done in your pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember recently you came up to me after your last child and you were like, after Miles, and you said, I know I forgot some things. And I'm like, yeah, Sophia, I pick and choose what I talk to you about, because just seeing you commit to doing what you did, even in the midst of what you were doing. I mean, you almost delivered Max here.
Yes.
You were working until like
Enzo.
Yeah. 2 hours before he was born.
Yeah.
You were like, PT, I feel like I'm having
I gotta
contractions
go.
as I was leaving. And I was like, okay. Next thing I know is the baby's delivered. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what an incredible.
I will say, just if any like radical and young women are watching this, that not everyone is called to do
100%.
everything to this capacity. I don't even view it as it makes me better than anyone, because it doesn't. I feel like some people are meant to have 2 children. Some people are meant to have 4 big families.
For sure.
I admire 100% stay-at-home moms, like Ashley, your wife. Like, but I think when whoever you marry and you guys have a calling together,
100%.
like Steven and I even talk about, like, our family has our own vision statement, our own mission statement. This is what our family is called to do. So yeah, I think it's big for like young people to, when you envision your future, to compare it to other people. I think it's good to admire other people.
Yeah.
But God does give you the capacity and the grace. So I'm thankful, and I know that this is what I'm called to do. But it's also so admirable what everyone else gets to do,
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And look at, though, the mess that created a masterpiece. The mess that created a family. The mess that will now carry a legacy of a family that honors God, because you committed to be faithful. You committed to walk through the process. And now look at what God's done through it. And I think so many times people leave in the mess, or they're not willing to work through the mess. And the next thing you know is their life's even more of a mess. Our vision has always been clear, right? Share the gospel.
Make disciples.
And make disciples. That's always been the goal. Now you get to do that behind the scenes, way more than up front, but you are starting to preach again. So that's coming up, 2 weeks. So I can't wait for that. But you now behind the scenes get to really help us expand this vision and expand this mission in a way so that we could see more campuses open, more nations reached, with more people that are students that will make messes, but will end up becoming masterpieces and carrying the gospel to a broken world.
Oh yeah.
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. Like, I'm so thankful for this campus ministry, seriously. Like, I would not be the mom I am, exactly what you said today, if it was not for that mission.
Yeah.
Like, for sharing the gospel and making disciples, messing up through all of that, like learning how to deal with mess ups, like finding your identity in Christ when you mess up, like running back to Jesus when you mess up, being open and confessing it to people that love you, that could point you to Jesus when you mess up. Like, you find all of that in a community like this.
For sure.
And anyone that runs, you're right, like ends up probably falling into more messes.
Isolated.
Yes.
By themselves.
Yes.
Blaming somebody else.
Yes. That's why I'm excited for this podcast too, because we're going to
we have a whole bunch of messes.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Like, everyone that's going to sit in this seat.
Just talk about it all.
We're just going to talk about their mess and what God did through their mess.
Yeah.
I mean, I could list 35 people. Right
and
now
I hope that like whoever listens to this, like, honestly just feels really seen and knows that like God's calling you to do something too. Probably not like to certain capacities that maybe you think, oh, I can't do that. But like, everyone has a calling and a purpose, right?
Yeah. And I think it begins though with spending time with Jesus.
100%.
That's what you said. Your devotion started drifting.
100%.
So everybody that is listening to this feels heard, but also feels compelled to draw closer to God.
Yeah.
and to get discipled. I don't think you would be where you're at today if people didn't believe in you.
Mm.
I for sure wouldn't be where I'm at today if Pastor Shaddy didn't believe in me. And I think that is what discipleship is. As we disciple people, we always need people to be discipling us. That way we can continue to grow and our lives can continue to resemble Christ so many others can follow him.
All right. We're going to wrap this up before you go into a whole making disciples
Very
training.
good. I'll preach the gospel.